Very good. All right, do we have a motion to open the continued public hearing for ATM zoning bylaw amendments?
So moved.
Second.
A motion, a second, and discussion. Roll call vote, Mr. Cass,
Aye.
Mr. English,
Aye.
Lawrence,
Aye.
Mr. Skinner,
Aye.
Mr. Woodhams.
Aye.
Mr. Wren.
Aye.
Mike McKnight, aye, 7 in favor, no one opposed, motion carries. Let's see. Lots happened on this, I think, since the last meeting, and I wasn't here at, but there's been some other meetings that some members of this board attended. What I would first say is that I was asked to have an informal board presence as a working group with Planning Board and EDC. That changed at some point, and it was too late for us to, I think it was after your last meeting, so we couldn't vote that, and it couldn't be posted. I would say, unbeknownst to me, the Board of Selectmen wanted a full board, but that's the explanation of what we were asked for, what we provided, and then what came as a change after the last planning board meeting. So Mr. Woodhams, Mr. Lawrence, and I attended the last Board of Selectmen meeting. We would have liked to have the full board there, but that wasn't the intent initially. Good discussion at that meeting. It felt like there was more questions than answers and more work that needed to be done. And I think the Board of Selectmen and I think, and I won't speak for Mr. Lawrence or Mr. Woodhams, EDC people felt that we should not try to force this into the town meeting in April, that we should allow time to pass, more information to be transmitted, more things to happen in the state with other towns and learn more about this, and put it out for a November town meeting vote and give us time to address those as a community, not just the planning board. But maybe Mr. Woodhams or Mr. Lawrence can add to that if I've missed something.
I would say that covers it. I think that there is an attempt to outreach to other towns who are struggling with what's required of them, but I had some difficulty getting on any of those calls or whatever it was. So, but we are trying to find out if if like-minded people are, have ideas that we don't have as well. So I mean, I think the selectmen and I believe, well, I support what they're doing, which is just trying to explore every option before we just say, okay, this is what we have to do. We're going to do it. I'm complete.
Yeah, I would say we walked away from that meeting with a lot less certainty that we wanted to try to do this in June. I was able to get on a meeting this past Monday that was run by a former city councilor, maybe out of Gloucester, who's trying to start sort of a grassroots movement to band together some cities and towns. I didn't take a whole lot away from the meeting. She kind of went over a lot of the MBTA law for people who had questions on it. They had people from multiple, I did not participate. I didn't even identify myself. I just went in and listened on my phone, no video, no audio, just because I wanted to hear what they had to say. There seems to be a lot of people who want to try to do something, but I'm not sure how organized it is. And I didn't walk away from their meeting with a feeling that this was going to be a real strong group that will lead the opposition necessarily. And I understand there's probably going to be a lot of communities that are going to try to band together or try to do something with the state, and I'm all for waiting and seeing what happens. I know Rockport filed a suit against the state based on this. Be interesting to see how that turns out. And I don't have a problem with Wrentham taking our time and looking down the road at it. But my concern is that we get to November and this goes through a vote and the town, for whatever reason, votes it down. You know, there was talk at the selectmen's meeting about, well, you know, we could schedule another meeting, you know, a special town meeting in December and look at it again. And A, I don't think it gives them enough time to actually turn that around. And B, I think it's a horrible time of year to try to get people together to debate this. So what I'm planning on doing as a private citizen, I'm not doing it as a representative of the planning board at all. I would not ever want to speak for the board. I'm going to contact the Board of Selectmen and ask them to consider the possibility of holding a separate special town meeting prior to the November meeting, specifically for this one topic, because I think this one topic is going to take all night, and to try to do it at the same time we're doing everything else that we're doing in the November town meeting, I think is probably going to push everything over the edge. And I think if we have one that's just about this topic and it's in October, they have the time to be able to react and put it back on November if October doesn't work. But other than that, I don't have a problem with kicking it down the road a little bit, but I'm just afraid that we're going to miss out on the chance to make our deadline. And I really think the state is playing for keeps on this, and I think it's going to be real hard to get them to back down. And I'm afraid of what it's going to cost this town, to become non-compliant. So
I do think there was some sentiment, and even though Rachel did a great job with our consultant Bowler narrowing down sites, there was sentiment that people wanted to look deeper into that and make sure they really understood what the sites, where all the sites of potential were, vet them, look at them, and then try to settle on a couple of sites, be more involved in maybe a broader review of the town and potential opportunities versus the two that were put in front of people in the presentation. That's nothing against Rachel and Bowler. I felt like people wanted to be more a part of that analysis. Certainly, I heard that from a few Board of Selectmen.
yeah, I heard that from them and some of the citizens at large as well. I just don't want to go chasing after, oh, well, this guy's got 5 acres over here, we should look at that. There are specific criteria as to where the state's going to allow these things to go. And just having a piece of land that's X number of acres somewhere in town does not qualify it to fall in the guidelines of this. And I don't want to see Rachel's time wasted. I don't want to see Bowler's time wasted. If they're legitimate possibilities, absolutely. But I just don't want them chasing every little other option that don't even fit the basic criteria.
So we have an open meeting. There's one question, which is a question for the board. Do we continue these meetings with or without testimony until a point when more information is known, and then we continue to have meetings? Do we pause this public hearing and then pick it up again later? I guess, Rachel, maybe you can help us with the options of what it means to do to, close this public hearing down and then pick it up again later, or keep it open and continued until we know more information and can actually vote on it.
So, God, I don't know that having reverbs on this. I guess I won't talk so loud, maybe.
Feel
So
like
sorry
we're
if
at
you guys
Woodstock.
have to come in closer. So the only thing I have with that, there's a lot of timelines that are associated with not only MBTA, but zoning amendments on their own. So whatever we decide, I have to backtrack from that date to have your hearings, which essentially you should just keep them open. You have like a 1 month sort of wiggle room. You can still have joint meet. I know there was a concern because it came up in that joint meeting where, well, we can't all talk about it together. Yeah, you can. All you have to do is just continue your public hearing to that date. That's all. And, you know, that's,
Yep.
yeah, that's a formal process. And that way, with a public meeting, as we all know, we went through that public open meeting law. In a public meeting, the members, boards, committees don't have to take public comment. In a public hearing, you have to take public comment. So that's the only thing. However, if you want to have people come in and sort of talk about this, you know, openly, you know, have it part of the record, keep the public, you know, hearing open. They feel like they're, you know, involved in it when you have that joint meeting. We can have informational sessions as well. And again, these were just this was my recommendation based on me looking at the law and the compliance model, and then also taking it a step further and going through the master plan that we just spent 2 years doing. And this is my recommendation. The town, you can decide other areas, but that's I gave you my recommendation. If you decide not to take that, that's fine. That's all it is a recommendation. And essentially town meeting still has to vote on this. So all that being said, the state also, as part of this MBTA law, they want to have a 90-day pre-review. So whatever, before your vote. So if you do it in October, I need to back that out. We need to have something finalized at least 3 months prior to that we are comfortable with, you know, that we're going to put on the, you know, at that town meeting. So whatever date you pick, you know, say it be October, back out 3 months from that, you have to have a finalized sort of bylaw language and area 3 months prior to that, because we have to submit it to the state for their pre-approval.
Okay.
So that way we don't get into any, you know, hiccups.
So we're almost at or beyond that if we don't vote in March, because we'll miss 3 months before the June town meeting. Is that?
Right. And we don't have to have it on the June town meeting. We can keep this
Okay.
public hearing open. I mean, I was just looking at 10 Commerce Boulevard. That was submitted in June of 2023. So you can keep a public hearing open for a long time. And I can also understand, hey, you know what? We've got 3 new members that are going to be on in April. Like they're not going to be able to vote. They can vote on a zoning amendment is different than a special permit, because you're just sending a recommendation to town meeting. And I know a lot of your members that have got their names on the ballot have been watching very closely on this. And so they know what's going on as well. But
Okay.
that's not a requirement, you know, for them to be eligible, because all you're doing is sending a recommendation. But we have, you know, something has to be sent to the legislative body of town meeting and have them decide.
So if we'll take any questions tonight, because it's an open hearing, and we'll do that. We can continue it. We can continue it to a date certain or to the next date and take a vote of the next date to move it. The thing we would not, so if Board of Selectmen and EDC wanted to hold a joint meeting, we would then be able to vote on moving that meeting. We would have to post it. We'd have a quorum. We'd open that public hearing, just like we do a planning board meeting, just like BOS and EDC did. The thing we would not be able to do is if they wanted to have any kind of work sessions, we would only be able to have a maximum of 3 members at any work session outside of a public hearing. Is that right?
Correct. However, if 3 members of this board are being tasked with on that work committee, you're a subcommittee. And so you have to be created. We can keep the 3, you know, people that were originally that. But yes, you'll have to, that's sort of the gist. And that's why the 3 of you could only make that last time.
Okay. And I think you voted at the last meeting, I wasn't there, that we did vote that subcommittee into existence.
Yes,
For the, we'd have to sort of expand it. It was for the express purpose of meeting for that February 27th meeting
Okay.
and then reporting back on, at this meeting. But if you want, you can keep the band together and, you know, just for any future MBTA working group, meetings.
It's the only 3 members that'll be on the board after April that aren't relatively new, Mr. English. Apologize for that, but everybody else will be gone. So we can
Well, I
certainly
know
do
Mr.
that.
English has expressed that he wants to be involved in these conversations. I can check with town council to see if it can open up to 4 members because you're making us, I don't know, because
Okay.
then it's a quorum and then it's considered the public hearing. But if you want to have, you know, Rob English tap in if one of you can't, because again, I know Rob has really wanted to be involved and that's great. I love that. I love when people are involved.
We had to
I-
boot him from the
I-
last meeting, so
I
sorry.
know. So, yeah, so I can check with town council to
Okay.
see if, you know, and if you will just want to amend that vote to say, hey, you know, Rob can be the alternate if one of you 3 can't make it. And I'll just run it by town council to see if that's kosher.
Okay.
And
We can vote on that at the next meeting. I don't think anything's happening in the next 2 weeks on any work group, so I think we're
no, yeah, no, I will say that, since all of the press coverage that this has received, I've been reached out to by the state. You know, the planner that's in charge of, all this kind of stuff, she's reached out to me as well as MAPC has reached out as well. The state has offered, the Housing and Livable Communities, formerly known as DHCD. She has offered to, you know, come out and present to either a small cohort of the board, and either at the planning board or the select board meeting, or if we end up having a joint meeting, I'm sure she could do that there and just sit and listen as well. She did say that the governor, that they did receive the letter that the select board sent. And again, the press coverage, really helped move that up the chain. But that obviously the governor is very busy. And so getting a letter of response is going to take some time. And that depending on when it happens, you know, she can either meet before the formal letter is presented or after the letter. I think Kevin and I spoke and maybe we would want to wait till the former letter was, created. But again, not knowing the timeline of that, that's our recommendation. If you want to push that up, I can certainly send that to her as well.
Is anybody at the BOS recommending that, I think their meeting is the night before our next meeting, that we have another joint meeting, or is this just let it sit for now and we'll get to it? Get to it.
Nobody's really told me anything.
But we couldn't vote that as a board anyways, because there's no set date. Right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
for
right,
the
so-
letter and everything. So once
So-
we find that out, yeah, we can
So it's-
decide and try and work together on a date and time certain.
So it sounds like the planning board is on hold until we have our next meeting and make any other actions to vote the continuance of the working group or the extension of the working group, or to make a vote to push our meeting or create a meeting if the Board of Selectmen at their next meeting chooses to have a joint meeting again. But other than that, we can't really move on anything there.
I mean, we can still discuss the bylaw, you
Yes,
know, and
yes,
you know,
we-
that kind of stuff right now, but you're right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know what's happening. If I had a magic 8 ball, as all of us, we probably wouldn't be here, right?
I was specifically on the MBTA discussion, so we won't do that. Now, for the MBTA, we certainly have an open public hearing. Is there anybody here who wants from the board, I guess, first to talk about this tonight? Mr. Cass, any?
Nothing at this time.
Mr. English,
No, thank you. I have nothing.
Mr. Lawrence?
Excuse me. No, nothing else at this time.
Mr. Skinner? I think you're on mute, Everett.
I have a couple of questions. Outside of the 50-acre area that we have to designate, what is the smallest sub area that we could include?
You can have 5 acres. You have, so 50 acres in total, 25 has to be contiguous, and then you can have five acre parcels. All of them would each be different sub-district, and depending on what the makeup of that lot was, it would be a certain density. Now, the density, the average of those 6 lots, of those 6 sub-districts, has to average out to be 15 units per acre. So there's a lot of math involved and a lot of spreadsheets involved that I have Bowler doing, because again, even though, as I said, I love Excel, and I'm pretty proficient, this was a lot for me too.
Okay, that was my question. Has the bylaw that was published been changed at all? The model bylaw, that's what I'll call it.
I think I changed, because again, this was how I thought that it was going, was just going to be the wampum area. I took out the other 2 sub-districts and just kept that one. So that's really all that's changed. I maybe did some tweaking of some language to make it not so commuter rail focused, you know.
And I'm only asking because my next meeting will be the last meeting. I have some comments on what I have as I don't even know if there's a date on this. I don't see a date. February 7th, I guess is the date on it.
Yeah.
Is there anything new since February 7th?
No.
All right, I have some comments I'll get to you first.
Awesome. Thank you. Again, I appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Skinner. Mr. Woodhams?
Oh, I think I've probably spoken enough on this tonight. Thank you.
What about Chris Woodhams? I think he needs to come out and talk too.
Yeah, my evil twin, Chris.
Mr. Rent? I think you're on mute if you are.
I have nothing further to add.
Any comments from the from members who are still here from the public on the MBTA specifically? We'll get to senior living in a second. Raise your hand if you do. I don't see anything. Do we want to make let's see. So we'll just continue this part of it after we decide what to do with senior living. This may be a split where we move the senior living and then keep this as part of the public hearing. So with that, I think we've covered MBTA. Any comments, thoughts, questions on senior living community bylaw amendments?